The Rebbe, the Rebbe is going to continue to develop this idea that the level of bittel, the real bittel, comes mitzad the level of yichida. And that's really b'chol mo'idecha. The Rebbe is going to ask, why isn't b'chol levavcha, b'chol nafshecha also mesiras nefesh? If you love Hashem with all your heart, with all your soul, you're going to be ready to be Moser Nefesh. So why do we say that the real Mesiras Nefesh is only in B'chol Mo'idecha? And the Rebbe explains that real Bittul B'Metzias, if the service comes because you wanted, you agreed to it, and there's possibility that there should be the other way, that means that you're not totally bottle. It's only when it's b'chol mo'idecha. It's not hinged that this is what you choose to want, but it's just impossible to be otherwise. That's the true level of bitl, as the Rebbe will explain. Dalit. Yesh lekasher ze im hayadua. We can tie this to that what it's known. Be'inyan koyach hamesidas nefesh shebekol echad ve'echad miYisrael, with regards to the power of Mesiras Nefesh that is by every single Yid. The koyach ha-Mesiras Nefesh hu mitzad yichida. The power for Mesiras Nefesh is, what it says, comes because of yichida. The zeh shehu moiser nafshei shaloi liparet chas v'sholim. Magdusi yizbarich. The fact that a person is ready to give up his life, not to separate it, God forbid, from Hashem's unity. Huloi mitzad harotzin shaloi. So the real Mesiras Nefesh, when we explain Mesiras Nefesh, is not because I want to. This is something that he agrees to it. Which means it's possible it should be otherwise, but he wants it. That's not real Mesiras Nefesh. Mesiras Nefesh means that he's just not able. It's not that he chooses not to, but he's not able to separate himself, God forbid, from his blessed unity. So, based on that idea of Mesiras Nefesh, which comes mitzad the level of the Yechida of the Neshama, so we can explain why it is Bechol Mo'idecho, which is considered the level of Mesiras Nefesh, is only Bechol Mo'idecho. Based on this, we can explain what it's explained in many places. That when we say the Hava B'chol Me'edecha, that's Mesiras Nefesh, the L'cheira, in a movement, L'cheira is not understood. Even the love of B'chol Levavcha, with all your heart, the love of B'chol Nafshecha, Mechayeves L'cheira Inyan Mesiras Nefesh, that too brings you to, obligates you to Mesiras Nefesh. How so? When you love Hashem with all your heart, and for sure, how much more so? When the love to Hashem is with all your soul, so for sure you're ready to give up your soul for Him, for Hashem. Even why are we associating Mesiras Nefesh davke to b'chol me'idecha? So what is the advantage? What is the novelty in the Ava b'chol me'idecha that is Mesiras Nefesh? The Rebbe explained, as long as this is something which is totally in your rotzen, that you decide, then that means that you still have something there which is, you have to decide. Mesiras Nefesh or B'chol Me'idecha means that there is total bittul, there's nothing else there, so you don't have to decide. You're just not able to be. That's real Mesidas Nefesh. The Rebbe explains, "Va'bir b'zeh, sha'Mesidas Nefesh mitzad ha'aved b'chol levavcho b'chol nafshecho." If the Mesidas Nefesh comes because of the love of b'chol levavcho nafshecho, he be'oifen sheroitze limser nafsher avuravaya. That is in a way that he wants to give up his soul to Hashem. And based upon B'chol levavcho, it's on rationale. B'chol nafshecha is level of chaya higher than rationale. Sheroitze limsa nafshu avaya ba'ava the b'chol levavcho is the b'chol levavcho, which is the nefesh ruach neshama, which is the rotzin shal pitam badas. U'ba'ava the b'chol nafshecha chaya rotzin shal amayla mitam. So, but it's still all a rotzin. Mashen ken amesiras nefesh mitzad. Ha'ava di b'chol me'idecha, as opposed to Mesiras Nefesh, which is the Ava of b'chol me'idecha, which is the level of Yechida, as we had spoken in the previous Ois. He be'oifun she'ena yochel liyis nifret, chas v'sholom. You're not able. It's not that you want to be made. You can't be separate to God from Hashem. V'zehu she'inyan ha'mesiras nefesh hu be'ava d'chol me'idecha. That's why the idea of Mesiras Nefesh is specifically by the Abu Chomedach. Ki Mesidas Nefesh hu inyan habitl. To give over yourself means you subjugated. You are not an entity, self-effacement. And Vamitis inyan habitl. And when could there be the real concept, idea of bitl? Hukisha Mesiras Nefesh Ilui mitzad harotze mitzias shaloi. When the Mesiras Nefesh is not based on your rotzen, which is your mitzias, it's your entity. Ela mitzad alakus, it's mitzad godliness. I can't be separated from godliness. Not that I choose to give myself over to Hashem or give up my life for Hashem, but I'm not able because it comes from Hashem, not from me. And we can say further, this is also one of the explanations that in order to negate all the strange rotzens, the desires of the animal soul, it's dafke when you come b'chol me'idecha, that negates all the Ritzoy Nizor. Why? Because the love of b'chol levavcho nafshecha mekivon shemitzad avazu yesh efshorus shaloi limser nafshe. Because based on this ava, there's a possibility not to give up. You decide to give up, but there is potentially that possibility not to give up. The fact that you do give over your soul is because of rotzen. So that proves there is still an entity of lumazeh. So the real bittel of the umazeh does not come with the av of cholavavcha chol nafshecha, not with naran and chaya, but dafke mitzad yichida va bittel leumazeh, bittel legamri. But the bittel of the other side, total bittel, hu alidei ha'ava de b'chol me'idecha. That is through the ava b'chol me'idecha. Shemitzad avezu, because of the ava b'chol me'idecha, I efsher liyos be'oifen acher chas v'sholom. It cannot be otherwise. It's not that you have to make a decision, you have to want, but it can be otherwise. It's mitzad elikus. And therefore, there is no entity, there's nothing to battle, there's nothing there to choose from, because that's his galus from the person's yechida, as opposed to these galus of his chaya or the nefesh ruach and neshama. Yeah, it's a bittul, but it's not total, because it's not total bittul. There's still an entity there. Okay. So when I say the Rebbe is going to uh, detail specifically the level of chaya, that the level of chaya the Rebbe brings down in the beginning. Sometimes in the beginning of the Mamer, he says that chaya does not have war. L'shayich milchama. Chaya would be the level of Padah Beshlaom, the level of chaya of nefesh. And then later on, he says that chaya is also b'derech milchama. It's only the level of yechida, which is b'derech shalom. And the Rebbe brings the difference. He says that while Shlomo HaMelech built the Beis Hamikdash because he was a man of menucha, of peace, but yet the plans and the the command came to David. David prepared it, but if David was uh, a warrior, so why would he prepare the plans? Why didn't it all go through Shlomo HaMelech? The Rebbe explains there was a period of David which was also peaceful. Kshaniach Hashem from all the enemies. At that point, the Rebbe said that's like the level of Chaya in between. As we'll see, that it is a little bit connected to Milchama, but it's not fully. But it's still not the level of peace which comes from the level of Yechid. As we'll see inside. Hey. The above Maimer of the Middle Rebbe, in the beginning, Mevayer the Inyan HaMilchama Nefesh Elikis Im Nefesh HaBahamis. He explains that the war of the godly soul, Nefesh HaBahamis, is Hiben Aran, HaMilboshim Beguv Nefesh HaBahamis. That's in the Nefesh, Ruach and Neshama, the Koiches Pnimium that are dressed in the Guf and the Neshama. Masha'enkin, he says, Bahamakifim, and he includes the Chaya Yechida, both the Chaya and Yechida. The Shaykh Muhammad, over there, it doesn't fit what? Hello. So L'chatchila, he says the chiluk is between Naran, is Muhammad, but in Chaya Yechida, in both, it doesn't apply Muhammad. But later on in the continuation of Maimer, over there he explains with more detail. That also in the level of Chaya of the there's also Milchama. The Shalom is really only by Yechida. And the Rebbe explains this. This would be similar to what the Eibishter said to David HaMelech. So leave the Beis HaMikdash when he wanted to build the Beis HaMikdash. The Eibishter says to him, Dam lo reif shafachto gomer. You've spilled lots of blood. David was a warrior and he fought, killed many people. You will not be the one building the structure, the house for my name, Gomer. And the pasuk says, "Hine bein nolad l'cho, hu yiyeh ish menucha." You'll have a son born to you. He will be a man of relaxation, of peace. Hu yivneh bayis lishmi. He's the one that'll build the house for my name, Gomer. So it almost seems that who is the one that needs to build the Beis Hamikdash? Only Shlomo HaMelech. And yet, Elisha Afal Tavnis Hamikdash Nasa de David. The images and the plan of how the Mikdash should be, that was done through David. As the Pasuk said, Miyad Hashem Olai Hiskil. From Hashem, I got the understanding of how to build. And then the Pasuk says, Vayitan David l'Shlomo b'noyes Tavnis Ulum Gomer, that David gave to his son Shlomo the images of the Ulam, etc. So what's this thing that David gives the images if he can't build the Beis Hamikdash because the Ish Muhammad? V'tzorich lo'ovin the kivon shebeis Hamikdash kosher menucha, since the Beis Hamikdash is tied to the idea of relaxed בשלום and peace davke. Shalachem nemar leDavid letivna bayis lishmiki shmul chamesato. That's why we said to David, you will not build a house for my name because you're a man of wars. Lama nasu hachones lebeis hamikdash al yidei David shohoye ish mulchamas. So how come the preparations for the Beis Hamikdash were made through David, who was a man of war? So what's the explanation? Shlomo Rabir Bazeh can say the explanation. Ki oz, at the time Ksherotzo David lived in Beis Hamikdash, at the time that David wanted to build the Beis Hamikdash, umekolsking sheichnis hatochnis hatavnis v'chul, especially when he created the plan, hoye David b'matzav shel menucha. At that point, it was in a condition of menucha. V'havayi hiniach le'misavim mikoleivav. Hashem has let David alone from all enemies that surrounded him. So he was a man of menucha too. Elo. Shakivon sha'menucha de David bo al de hamilchamas she'oso, since the menucha of David came through the wars that he made, he got the menucha through wars. That's why the building of the Beis Hamikdash needed to be through Shlomo. Why? Because he was ish menucha be'etzim. He was a man of relaxed, a man of peace. Please, by essence, he didn't get peace through waging wars and then having peace. He was just peaceful to beginning. In essence, it was peace. And the Rebbe ties this now to the two interpretation whether Chaya is considered war or Chaya is considered Shalom. B'Shloimar, the Rebbe said, this is that what it says l'chatchila in the Mamer. Shagam b'bchinas Chaya lo shayich milchama. That also the level of Chaya doesn't fit war. While derech hamenucha de David la'achrei shenotzach kol hamilchamas. That is similar to the menucha of David after he won all the wars. So the level of chaya that is not milchama doesn't mean that it doesn't apply at all, but it's a resting after winning all the war. What's the difference between naran and chaya yechida? The bechinas naran shemislab shebeguf v'nefesh habahamis. The level of nefesh ruach neshama, which dress up in the body nefesh habahamis, that the koiches pnimiyim, the intellect and the emotions. Kivon shepaulas nefesh alikis b'nefesh habahamis b'derech yislapshu v'yisaskus. Since the impact of the nefesh alikis nefesh habahamis is in a way that it dresses up, and he works with the nefesh habahamis. The nefesh habahamis hasaga shalo he ba'atev d'dvarim gashmi. In naturally, the animal soul, what it understands is that the physical matter, the good of physical matters. So it doesn't understand godliness, that godliness is good. So how do we get the nefesh habahamis to understand that godliness is good? The nefesh halikis works through the nefesh habahamis. The nefesh halikis misasekes imo levailo hatoiv delakus. The godly soul occupies with nefesh habahamis to explain to the nefesh habahamis the good that is in godliness. That is actually a war. That is war, actual war. But the level of chaya is not actual war. As opposed to the level of chaya, kiv this is the way it works with the animal soul. It's not that it dresses up. It's makif. Doesn't dress up in the nefesh habahamis. But when the force of the desire of the nefesh halikis to godliness is revealed, the level of the chaya, the love and the will to Hashem is revealed, misbatlin mimela haritzonos the nefesh habahamis. So the desires of nefesh habahamis become nullified because of the intense desire of the nefesh elikis to godliness. Ein ze inyan shel milchama. That's not considered to be war. Ubeklolus generally hu inyan shel menucha. That could be categorized as a way of menucha. It doesn't have to dress up and wage war. Ella. But what the issue is, shemenucha zui, he lo menucha be'etzem. It's not that there is menucha be'etzem by the nefesh habahamis. Verak mitzad tigboires harotzon the nefesh elokis. It's only because the overpowering desire of the nefesh elokis, the rotzon to godliness. It's bedugmas hamenucha de David la'achrei shahavai nichle v'kolevav. That is similar to the menucha of David after the Eibishter let him alone from all of his enemies. Shamenucha sheloi hoisa mitzadzeh shenotzach kol hamilchomes. So he got peace, he got relaxation because he won the wars. So the Tikboide Sarot and Nefesh Lakis wins the war over the Nefesh HaBahamis, but the Nefesh HaBahamis is not really Menucha, but it's forced into it because of the overpowering of the Rotzen of the Nefesh Lakis. Mashei Kim Bitlo Ritzain is the Nefesh HaBahamis. Al Gila Yechida, who, as opposed to the nullifying the desires of the Nefesh HaBahamis when the Yechida is revealed, is loy shal yidei gilu hayichide nase bitul haritzonos. So it's not when the yichida is revealed, then you're nullifying, you're negating the ritzonos. Ki im shemitzada yichida she'en keneged l'umazeh. Mitzad yichida, there is no opposition. As you said before, bevua de bevua leslo, there is no opposition to yichida. Ein mokim melachatchila ritzonos zorim. There is no place for other desires. You don't have to beat those desires through your desires to godliness. There's no other ritzonos. This is similar to the menucha of Shlomo. It wasn't because he had to be victorious. It's a menucha be'etzem. So the Rebbe explains the two aspects in Chaya, whether Chaya is considered to be, as in the beginning of the Mamer, an inyan of Sholem, because it's not dressed up. It's in the battle of the Nefesh HaBahamis, which understands Gashmis, and to have to give it to understand the Ruch. It's not like that. It's the Rotzin Talakus is Mevatel, the Rotzin Nefesh HaBahamis, but still that cannot be considered fully a level of peace, because it has to be mevatel the rotzin. That means that there is still a sense of other ritzonos, but it's overpowered. But when there's the gilui, the yichida, then there is nothing or no other ritzonos, and that's like menucha of Shlomo, which was totally peace, not menucha be'etzem, not like David who got to it through first having to battle and win the wars. Well, similar to this that we explained is in Avodah Shabaderech Milchama. We have different levels in the service, which is in a way of war. Sheyeshbo kama v'kama dargis. There is many different levels in the level of war. Da milchama shebitfila, the war that takes place in the davening, as we say, shas loisa, shas karova. The pasuk because that when you daven, it's a time of war. Kivon shebeis hatefila, who moves should mean yonei ha'ilam. Since during the davening he is outside of worldly matters, he's removed from worldly matters. Vis'askus shaloi hilis boinen binyon elikus, and his occupation is to meditate, to reflect in godly matters. Ula oirer avas Hashem v'yiras Hashem, and to wake up by himself, arouse by himself a love of Hashem v'yiras Hashem. Elo sha'izbonenus v'ava v'yira, but the reflection that he does and the love and fear tzriches liyos ba'ofen sheyiyeh musag bekam b'seichel denefesh habahamis. It needs to be in a way that it should also be understood in the intellect of the nefesh habahamis, that he should also love and fear Hashem. Ein ze milchama mamish. That could not be considered real war, because he is involved in godly matters, as opposed when he's involved in gashmis, eating and drinking, there's war. But here, even though we say it's war, but it's not mamish war, because the person is dealing with godliness. The war consists of that he's trying to explain it to the nefesh habahamis. This is called a sword of peace. This, it's still a cherev, but it's a cherev. It's loisi shas kerova. There's a cherev, but it's not the real battle over there. The main avoida from a yid in the way of war is mainly when he's eating and drinking. As we say, namo apum charbalechel, that bread you eat by the blade of the sword, the level of the sinzer. And also the other needs of the body. That's when there's really war. And within the worldly matters itself, it's mainly at the time of the business, when you're giving and taking, doing business, in the time of mischa. Because the war that by eating, and similar to the other needs of the body, is over there, the battle is that you should eat for the sake of heaven and not just to fulfill your taivus, your desire, that your soul's lusts to eat. In that case, he's waging war against that desire and the pleasure that's in the food. But he is not dressed up in the food. He's just making sure that the food that he's eating should be for the proper kavanah. But when a person is occupying himself in give and take in business, according to Torah, you must dress up in your business. As we say, and one of the questions the Gemara says is asked, Shabbos, did you deal, give and take with faithfully? So over there, he dresses up in business. That's a real battle that he dresses up. This is also, we can say, the reason generally sorting out is called knan. The pirush knan hu seicher. Knan means a merchant. The main sorting out things in a way of dressing up is masamat, which is even more in business than more than food. So it turns out, Shamilchoma da'achila idugmas hamilchoma becherev. the milchama of eating, because he's not in it, is like waging a war with a sword. Uh, he's not wrestling with the enemy. So he has to be close in order to get the person with the sword. You have to be in close in proximity of place, but it's not dressed up. He's not struggling. He's not wrestling with it. By the sword. Even though that the war with the sword is only when he's close to the enemy. That's the difference between a sword and a bow and an arrow, where you shoot from a distance. So still, they're just close in proximity. But when the war is in business, give and take, that's similar to the war which is called the krav, Moloshin Kiruv. Kiruv means close. Kiruv, the krav, who that close of krav, the Rebbe said before also, it's not just that they're close in proximity in place. They're actually hugging each other, and wrestling, trying to beat each other. That's the milchama of business. So we have davening is like a cheref shalom, because you're dealing with godliness. Food is like a war with the sword, and that's close proximity, but it's still not dressed up in it. And business is like a krav, the war that you have, but you have to have when while doing business, is like a krav in which like the enemies are wrestling each other. So now we'll understand. What does it mean? Shagam avodas habirurim shebederech krav. Even the work of birurim, which is in a way of krav, in a close, in a wrestling in the business. Not just a war, but it's a krav. That should be in a way of total peace. Sholim betachlis hashlemus ki hasholem shebei should be sholim in the ultimate wholesomeness, as the shalom was in Meshlem, as we said before, even higher than David, not through Nitzach, but it was the Ish Menucha Be'etzim. And even higher, the Rebbe says, like the shalom, it's going to be in the future. This is Padah Beshlaom. How does this happen? And the reason for this, that you're going to have the ultimate shalom, even from the Kravli, even from the battles of Kravli, is as the Pasuk continues, because the Rabbim was with me, the Barabim Hoyu Imodi, through the Avoida of Barabim Hoyu Imodi. What is the Avoida of Barabim Hoyu Imodi? She is Oirus Vigilu Hayichida. That Rabbim Hoyu Imodi were by me. That is talking about the arousal, the awakening, the revelation. As explained at length in the Mamer of the Balagula, the Kol Echad ve'Echad miYisrael b'koicha la'orer l'galos ha'yichud Shemayim. Every Yid has the power to wake up and reveal the Yichida that's in it. So Barabim Hoyu Imodi, we can wake up that Yichida. Nowadays, Nafshi Nase Padah Beshlaom Nafshi, that brings peace, redemption to Nafshi Shala Adam Ha'ovet, to the soul of the person who serves Hashem. Although he's occupied in worldly matters in order to sort him out in the way of Krav, Mikol Mokoim lo nitfas bazei should not get caught up in this. Va'apadia shaloi tiya b'sholem, and the redemption should be in a peaceful way. Va'ad l'sholim b'tachlis hashleimus, until the ultimate highest level of sholem. V'yiseidim izu, not only himself, but segam b'diyas hanitzoitzis shebinyon olam. Also, redemption of the sparks which are worldly matters. Tia b'sholem, it should also be peaceful. Berabim hoyu imodi. The rabbim, all the sparks were imodi, were with his level of yechida. Shagam hanitzoitzis shahoyot chilu b'chinas rabbim. Also, the sparks that to begin were in a way of rabbim. Um, um, because originally they were in exile in the public domain, which is called the mountains of separation, was in the other side. These sparks is still they are included in the soul of the person who sorts him out. The barabim hoyu imodi, they were with him. They are included in Yechida. So that is iris of the Yechida, which every Yid has the ability, allows for him not to get caught up in anything that he's doing in his preoccupation in the world. And even though it's krav, not only that, but the rabbim, the oldest sparks, Hoyi Modi, he elevates them together with himself. Yesh loymar, we can say Zeu gam hakesher v'hashaycha shel hagula Yud Kislev, Yud Kislev, the connection and the tie of the redemption of Yud Kislev, of the Middler of Yud Kislev, of the Alter Rebbe La Posik Padah Beshlaom Nafshi. And they both were saying the Posik Padah Beshlaom Nafshi, they were redeemed. Dagam Shabdiya Hoyso Mikrav, even though their redemption was from a krav, they went through a lot of suffering. That includes the fact that the incarceration came through the slandering. These were some people that were close. They had an attitude of closeness, and still the fact that the incarceration came through these people who yirida b'tzar godel, that's a great descent, it's a great pain. And still, so notwithstanding that it came from such a difficult place, from a level of krav, the redemption was b'sholom. That's the connection with the Padah Beshlaom B'shleimus. To the extent this became an introduction, a preparation for the ultimate wholesomeness, which is going to be in the future. Through spreading the well springs to the outside, which mainly started in Yutas Kislev. So it started in Yutas Kislev, especially through the service, the work of the Bal Hagul of Yud Kislev. It was in the way of Rechev God, is like the Bina, the level of the widening of the river. He brought down that Mayan, the Mayan Sechot that the Alter Rebbe brought about. He draw this out and made it in a way of Rechev Sanor, but Rechev Sanor, in our days, that's where the master is going to come, which is King Mashiach. Then there's going to be peace and real relaxation in total completeness. Those who taste, live life, we can now taste from it. That we begin to taste it, some of it, even during our later days now in Golus, It should be Beshalom. We can occupy ourselves in a relaxed and a joyful way, love and gladness of heart, the afutza minus in the way of spreading the will springs to the outside, and the in a way that it keeps on going and more light, and very soon will merit to the time that the night will shine like the day, the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu.